Okay, so now that we're in Photoshop, let's go ahead and open those files again. So these are the files that we created in PixInsight. We're going to highlight them all, drag them over here, and let them all open. Alright, so let's start with our background. Let's set the black point on our background. And if you hover over here, we can see we're in the high 40s. If you look over here at the information box, we're in the high 40s. So let's go ahead and put this somewhere where we can usually I like to put it anywhere between 30 and 35, and they're around 34. It looks pretty good, and you can toggle things on and off, and that gives me a good, nice kind of deep gray, not pitch black, um, which allows for the image that I like in the tone that I like. So let's do that same thing to all our other images, and kind of look over here at our information, and let's put this down to about 34, which is around 13. So let's do the same for this one, levels, and do 13 there. So essentially we've set the black point for all these images here, and so what we'll do next is highlight those, duplicate them, and merge them together, and we'll do the same thing for M81. So highlight them, duplicate them, merge them, and then we're going to copy this image and paste it as a layer on top of our background, and same thing for M82. Copy it and paste it on top. So essentially what we want to do is bring out just the galaxies and keep the background as is. So how we're going to do that basically is by applying some masks. So let's do some masks there, invert it, and then invert this second mask over here. Alright, let's start with the bottom layer here, which is M82, and let's zoom in over here, and basically what we want to do is paint through the mask, which is pretty much occluding everything in white. So let's go ahead and actually undo this brush too, because I was painting on the actual image, but let's paint on the mask itself, and let's choose the white color there. Alright, so when we do that, we can go ahead and paint all around our galaxy to make sure that we bring out everything that we worked on in PixInsight. So this little area here, and we also had something going on there. Alright, so at this point, what we're going to do is hold Alt and click on the mask so I can go ahead and color everything in. And then I'm going to apply a Gaussian blur for about, let's say, something like 40 there to kind of blend that mask in. And we're going to do the same thing for M82 over here. And let's just decrease the size of our brush a little bit, and then paint through the mask and really bring out this galaxy that we have hanging out here. Okay, and then Alt click, make sure you fill in everything that you want there. So let's go ahead and click on the mask again and apply that Gaussian blur around 41. That's fine. Hit OK, and then let's go ahead and highlight those two and put them in a group. That way I can kind of toggle things off and on. So you can toggle things on and off, on and off. And just to make sure, we gotta also come back here and edit these masks, because one of the side effects that we had from not using the custom star mask and point spread function in PixInsight is that we got these defects um, on our stars, these little these little dark halos and kind of dots in the center. So we're going to go ahead and actually paint the mask back over and hide all our defected stars, because we really don't want them in our image. And this is an easy fix, so that's why we didn't go through that long process in PixInsight. So we're going to go here, and pretty much anywhere where you have stars that are defected, you're going to go ahead and color that in. Same thing for M82. Go to the M82 mask, make this just a tiny bit bigger there, and you're able to clean things up real nicely. Okay, so let's zoom out just a little bit more, and things look great there. Essentially, when you look at the mask here, if you hold Alt-click, you can see where we're blocking off all those little stars. Okay, so let's minimize that, and again, now let's work on reducing some of the noise. So when we zoom in real nice and close, you can see a lot of the chromatic noise. So let's create a merge layer of everything we've worked on so far. Hit Control A, then hold Control Shift and copy, which is C, which copies everything that's merged, and Control V, which pastes it right on top. Alright, and let's go ahead and do color blotch reduction in our action tool sets. So let's hit play and let it work its magic, and hopefully you'll see that all the color blotching that you see there, the chromatic noise will be changed to just kind of noise in the form of just different shades of gray, and there you see just kind of grays, and here if we toggle it on, you see the chromatic noise that's on there. So we'll do that there. I'm going to add a mask on here and kind of paint over my galaxies, because one of the side effects that this sometimes has is that it does eliminate some of the color that's in the objects that you want to preserve. So I'm going to hit this mask with black over here, and this is just to paint over my galaxies dark to preserve any color that may have gotten kind of eliminated through that mask. So again, hold Alt-click to make sure that you can kind of look at the mask and fill everything that you want and need, and you can go ahead and click it again. Alright, so I'm going to create another merge layer. So we copied everything from the bottom up and pasted it on top, and we're going to go ahead, and this time you can see we're going to see how this will eliminate all the little shades of gray and make a real nice smooth background. So we're going to use deep space noise reduction, which really takes care of everything in the background. It uses a mask automatically to kind of protect your deep sky objects, your galaxies and whatnot. And you can see there, if I toggle it off, you have the noise, and toggle it on, it really eliminates the noise nicely. So there we have our M81 and M82 successfully merged together with our background. We've reduced the noise, but one thing we're going to do here is when we use these action tool sets over here, it changes the image to an 8-bit per channel, and we want to keep it at 16 to keep the most information that we can. So let's change it back to 16, and let's go ahead and continue our processing. So now that we are done with merging the two galaxies into our background, let's go ahead and duplicate this last layer, which is our most current layer, and we're going to sharpen these galaxies up just a little bit more using a high pass filter. So our top layer, we're going to use a high pass filter of about We're going to use about 1 pixel, and this we're going to set as overlay. It's going to really kind of sharpen the lighter areas. And then let's go ahead and use the same high pass filter, but kind of a little bit more aggressive, around 15 here, and that's going to show up real nicely on our dark lanes. So we'll hit OK there and set this one to soft light. Then we're going to highlight both of these and put these together in a group. And as you can see, when we toggle things off, we got our galaxies that are sort of blurry. But now when we use that high pass filter mask, it really gets things nice and sharp. One thing it is doing, it is kind of applying it to the whole image and affecting the stars. So what I'm going to do is add a mask to this, invert the mask so that it doesn't show up anything, and actually just do the same thing to our galaxies. Just apply it to only show in the galaxy regions. So again, we're going to paint on our mask. And you can see there. So Alt click to make sure we fill in our mask. And let's go over here and click on our mask. And on this end, we're going to just kind of highlight our dust lanes. Just kind of sweep over our dust lane areas, some of these nebulosity areas as well, and some of the dust lanes that we have spiraling on this end. Alright, so if we alt click, we can see what we've brought out, and let's apply a Gaussian blur of about 20 just to make this a little bit more subtle. And you can see it there and there as well. So let's apply that. And if we toggle things on and off, we can really see how our galaxies have sharpened up quite a bit. They're a little bit more crispy here, they're kind of fuzzy, and if we apply that mask, things really sharpen up in our dust lanes. Alright, so as far as this image goes, with processing things in Photoshop, we're pretty much done. What we see is that there's not a lot of color in the galaxies or the stars, and so we're going to save this image, and we're going to save it as Photoshop merge, because we have merged everything together, and then we're going to import it into PixInsight and do our saturation of color there. So let's open PixInsight here. We'll double click on the empty background, and you can see the photo merge there, and open it. Alright, so here we have our image, and what we're going to do is create a luminance mask and apply the mask from the beginning. So here's our luminance mask. We'll apply the mask there. We can minimize this, and then we're going to not show the mask so that we can see what our end product is here. So let's go ahead and make this a little bigger, and let's go ahead and open color saturation, and we're going to do also curves transformation. So opening first with our curves transformation, we have a whole bunch of tabs here that we can play with curves. This S here we use for our saturation. So we're going to put a pretty steep curve right up to that point with the saturation curve, and then also in the C component, I like to add a little bit more richness to the color by hitting it just where it hits those two lines. You can again toggle on the live view, and you can see how it's only applying the color to the galaxies, to the stars, and not really our background. So we like what it's doing there, and we're going to hit the execute button. And then hopefully we should be able to see a real nice improvement in the color. Okay, so you can see how we're getting some of those purples, the hydrogen alpha showing through. And what I'm going to do is reset that and actually apply just one more stretch here on the saturation curve. And again, this is with it on and off, and it just gets a little bit more yellow in the core and a little bit more color in all that we're interested in. So let's go ahead, hit OK. And there we can see nice saturation. Nice saturation in our galaxies, our stars. But a final touch that I will do is just apply more saturation to our nebulosity area. So if we hit Alt-N and create a little preview, especially for this M81, click Preview, we should be able to selectively, if we put some anchor points in this saturation curve, we can selectively just increase these colors in our image. So if we use the live view, you can see how I'm going to toggle things off, and the colors are there, but if we toggle it on, those nebulosity areas really start to kind of come out just a little bit more. So let's go here to our main image, and let's apply that increase in saturation in those red and pink colors. Alright, so as far as this preview is done, we're good to go. And this image is almost pretty much looking like it's done. The last step I will do for this is just kind of add a little bit more star saturation, and also kind of fix a little bit of these star spikes and kind of repair them, because during our noise reduction, some of these star spikes get a little bit blurred, and so I just kind of go back in using Star Spikes Pro to add that color saturation and to kind of touch up those spikes again. So let's hit File and save this image. What we're going to save this as is PixInsight saturation. We're going to hit save. We're going to hit unclick those and hit OK. And then we should be able to, let's go ahead and close these files that we don't need. And let's go ahead and open the saturation file that we just created. Alright, so here in Photoshop you can see how everything is nicely saturated. But let's go ahead and just kind of touch up those stars. So let's duplicate this background layer, and we're going to go to Filter, Star Spikes Pro 4, and hit that. So we're going to go to default settings, and it already is going to choose a number about 50 or so stars that it's going to select to add color and saturation. So we'll start with that and change the number of points to about to the maximum 32, and let's do the intensity at 1, and let's go ahead and start changing the length to about 15 or so. And what I'm doing here is just adding some star glow and star saturation to the actual stars. So let's go ahead and zoom in, and you can just show the effect only and see what you're doing. So let's go ahead and switch this sharpness to about 35, and then adjust the length to just add enough star color there. And basically, you see the effect, and with it on and with it off. So you don't want it to go too crazy. We're just kind of subtly adding the color onto this, really not going all out on this. And again, basically you can choose how many stars this effect is taking place. You can have as many stars as you want or as low stars as you want. So let's go ahead and put around 45. I think it's a good number there. And we're going to make sure that our actual cores of our galaxies don't sometimes show up as a star, so that one's good. Let's look at M82 over here. You can see this over here. I'm going to go ahead and not show. We're actually going to click hide this, hide that. Alright, so we're going to hit OK, and you can see how it's just a subtle kind of addition of some star color and some star glow. If you look at this particular star, you toggle things on and off there, you can see the star glow and the star saturation coming to place. Okay, the last thing I will do is go here, duplicate this layer again, and we're gonna do Star Spikes Pro again, and now we're gonna work on the star spikes. So you can go to default settings again, and one of the things that we're gonna do here is go ahead and keep this at 45. We're actually going to go to advanced, where we can control the primary, the secondary, the soft flare, and the ring flare. I usually don't like any ring flare, so I turn this completely off. But let's start going and working on our primary spikes. So let's set that intensity to 1. And if we kind of zoom in over here, we can see these secondary spikes. Let's see if we set this intensity and length not to 90, if that is way too much. Let's see if we get something like 10. And our soft flare, let's do our intensity, decrease this to about 20, and 50. So let's see the effect only. There's really not much going on there. But if we look at our stars here, let's go ahead back to our primary, and let's go ahead and switch the angle here and rotate it so it matches the angle of our stars. So about at that angle, it's a good angle there where everything pretty much matches, which is great. But now we're going to change the length over here and start decreasing this so that it looks more natural. So about 30, we're looking good there. Let's make these a little bit less sharp. Let's keep it at 50 there. Spike spread, we're going to keep this at 0. Saturation for the spikes, you can make them as saturated at or no saturation at all. Let's do about 10. Color hue, we'll keep it at 0. And our rainbow frequency controls, if you look at these stars closely over here, we're going to increase the rainbow intensity to about 87 or so. And here we can control how these star spikes look. And again, something to match what we got there is around 80. And we can switch the phase of the rainbow there and put that at 0. So if we take this off, take this on, you can see how it's kind of accentuating those star spikes. Now, sometimes you get the colors of the star spikes that are not exactly what you want, but this is easily corrected by hitting the edit button and actually changing it to the color that you want. So let's go to about -13, -4, and 12. That makes a blue star spike there. So if we do the effect only, we can definitely change the color of that star spike. And we toggle things on and off, and you can see how things just get a little bit nicer and kind of restored there. Now, when you apply these star spikes, sometimes the star spikes at the level that you set it will pick up on stars that didn't have star spikes, so that's easily corrected by just hiding the ones that you don't like or were never there. So I'm gonna pause this video, and I'm gonna go through basically scrolling through the whole image, removing the star spikes that weren't there, and then we'll come back when we're done. Okay, so I've gone through the entire image and kind of only kept the star spikes that were actually on the stars, and you can kind of see only the stars that were left that had star spikes originally, and you can toggle things on and off there, and you can see it's just kind of a subtle effect there. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And again, we're going to get our star spikes if we toggle things off and on. Sometimes though, if we look closely at our star spike, it tends to be a little bit too exaggerated. You can easily fix that by using a mask again and kind of going right over the star and clicking a little shadow on there. So again, just go through the entire image, and all the star spikes that were added, you can kind of do a center application of a mask on there just to make it a little bit more natural looking. And we're just kind of cruising along looking for those star spikes and looking to there and there. And once we have gone through the entire image, then we'll be pretty much done as far as the processing of this image goes. Alright, this is looking good here. Alright, so if we were to back out, again, the star spikes that we added, you can see all the areas that we have blocked it off to make it a little bit more natural looking. But this image is pretty much done. Again, toggling off the star spikes and then adding them again. So let's save this image as M81, M82, Photoshop, PixInsight, and Photoshop Final, and I will save it as a TIFF just to preserve the information on there. And then I will also save this as a JPEG, just so that I have something I can put on the web or just keep around that doesn't hog up a lot of space. Alright, so if we go ahead and look at our images, here's our M81 and M82 final. Again, we pretty much just got our background image, stretched the galaxies individually, sharpened them up, brought out a lot of stuff that was hidden in the core, then took it into Photoshop, merged all those three images together, did some more sharpening on these galaxies, put a little bit more color on the stars, and enhanced the star spikes to kind of restore them and make them a little bit more crisp. So let's go ahead and open this image. Let's open with Paint here, and we'll look at it full screen. And there you have it. That's M81 and M82. Hopefully you enjoyed this processing tutorial, and maybe hopefully you were able to pick up some of the tips that you can use on your processing to kind of make your images better. So hopefully this helped you out, and hope you enjoyed it. So let's close this out, and we are done.